There's no such thing as a bad drug, right? Because a drug is just a drug. It's a substance with certain properties. It has no moral qualities. The only thing that has moral qualities is human behavior. And there is lots of bad human behavior with respect to drugs. And there's lots of bad human behavior with respect to all kinds of things, and good human behavior too. I mean, again, this comes back to the context. So the whole war on drugs idea and the idea, it has nothing to do with protecting people from toxic substances. If that were the purpose of the war on drugs, tobacco and alcohol, would be prohibited tomorrow. And yet the structure of the law, not that prohibition would do any good, and I'm not advocating that, right? But if that were really the agenda for drug control, they would say, well, these are clearly the most harmful drugs. These are the ones that are killing the most people, so they should be strictly regulated. But in fact, the way the law is set up, the FDA is not even allowed to classify tobacco and alcohol as a drug.
There are these science fiction cliches like there is some knowledge man should not know. So probably there are probably horrible things like huge devils or that places where you shouldn't go. Viruses that would kill all life on Earth, or huge like things that make the atomic bomb. There's terrible things. So what does our society has a right to make those things not investigatable by science because they're too dangerous. So our society decides that among those things is marijuana. That scientists should not be able to explore marijuana and MDMA and LSD and these certain molecules because there are things men should not know. And I think as a scientist, that's laughable. And as I often like to say, I got my degree in nuclear physics, and I like to say, if they trusted me with plutonium, why not LSD? My gosh.
So this makes no sense. So okay, if the war on drugs is not about protecting people from harmful substances, what is it about? Why are all these substances illegal? It's about control. And ultimately it's about control of what people can think. And it's the control of experience. It's essentially the state arrogating itself to the point where it says, certain states of consciousness are allowed and other states of consciousness are not allowed. And that's really what it comes down to. This is about cognitive liberty.
There are these, plants that have these molecules that humans may have used for thousands of years that produce visions and so on, and are often considered to be healing. In our cultures, we've demonized some of these substances and made them illegal, which I would consider to be unfortunate.
It's the state saying, don't go there, because if you take this entheogen or you take this psychedelic, you're going to have funny ideas. And funny ideas are very dangerous, especially if they don't fit in with, what we're saying should be, kind of the accepted cultural zeitgeist. So that's the danger of psychedelics, is they actually cause people to question the cultural paradigms and say, well, maybe this is not consistent with, maybe the revelations of psychedelics are not consistent with what Hollywood and Wall Street and the government and Main Street and, religions and all these institutions are dishing out.
So the war on drugs is really a war on consciousness and who's allowed to think what. More importantly, I personally don't believe that anybody has the right to tell you what to do with your own body or what thoughts that you can think. That if you do not have the freedom to decide what happens to your own body and your own mind, then you really don't have freedom at its most basic, essential level.
You know, I think it's really ridiculous that they won't allow terminal cancer patients to take whatever fucking drug they want. I mean, you can't argue it's going to be, if you're going to die anyway, why can't you take any drug you like? And the extension of that is, once you pass a certain age, I don't know quite what that age should be, you should be able to do anything you fucking want to your body without being prosecuted. So scientists and old people should have free access to any drugs they want. I think I qualify in both counts. So, but you know, our society I don't even think that's enlightened. I think that's common sense. An enlightened society would take a look at these drugs objectively and say which ones can help, promote, and do we want a society based on alcohol and cocaine, or do you want a society based on LSD, MDMA, ayahuasca? Which of the drugs we're going to promote? And our society's picked, for some reason, the absolute worst drugs to make as its standards.
Potentially, psychedelic drugs could be for psychology what the telescope became for the science of astronomy.
In the right set and setting, with the right kind of psychotherapy support or religious support or whatever the context of the support is, and most importantly, what the person's intention is when they take it. If they're an addict or an alcoholic, they can take ayahuasca, they can take peyote, they can take these substances, and it will definitely help them to get over that. And in the case of something like ibogaine, it's even more specific. I mean, there's other things going on with ibogaine that might interrupt the addiction syndrome on the physical level.
For many people, actually, who were alcoholics and things like that, many have been cured by their use of psychedelics. So in some ways, it's the opposite of addiction.
Entheogens actually are almost the opposite of an addicting drug, in that sometimes a person will only take an entheogen once and have a very powerful experience and actually be freed from